go over today some of the misconceptions or mistakes in typical first aid procedures. There have been several changes over the years and several things that we no longer do that we used to consider a common practice. One of the first things you want to take care of in the nosebleed is, of course, to stop the blood, but you no longer lean your head back to stop the blood. You actually want to lean your head forward. Just place the compress over your nose and hold it shut, and you actually lean the head slightly forward. People typically lean back, which just causes the blood to run down the throat, and it actually bleeds longer and you lose more blood that way. The next time that you have a nosebleed, put the compress over the nose in 5-minute increments. 3 of them, 5-minute increments, and you keep the compress there until the nose stops bleeding, or you don't even worry about taking them to advanced medical care until it is at least a 5-minute nosebleed. You don't have to worry about the nose being fractured if it's a minor nosebleed. Okay, one of the other differences in bleeding injuries, you have 2 different ways that someone could possibly bleed. You have an arterial bleed and a venous bleed. Venous bleeds usually drizzle out the arm or will leak out of the cut slowly. An arterial bleed will squirt, and those are the ones that are very difficult to stop. If you ever are having trouble stopping bleeding, make sure that you put the compress directly over the area, and of course you apply pressure. You never do let up on the pressure until the bleeding stops. If the bleeding does bleed out from under the compress of the one that you've already placed there, you don't want to ever take the first one away. You want to add more on top of it and continue to add pressure. If the bleed continues after about 5 to 10 minutes and it does not slow down, this is when you want to bring in pressure points. You do not apply tourniquets at this point. We no longer use tourniquets on a regular basis. The tourniquets are an absolute last measure. You bring in pressure points when you can't stop the bleeding after approximately 15 to 20 minutes. Pressure points, one in your arm lies in between your elbow and your underarm, and it's directly in the middle. This is a pressure point for the arm. You have one on each side. You have 2 pressure points in the groin, right at the base of the groin, so that if you did have a leg bleed that you could not stop, you put pressure on the groin area. Again, we no longer use tourniquets. Another problem that you may have when giving first aid, you may encounter someone that is a diabetic, and this takes care of type 1 or type 2. This covers both of those types of diabetes. When you are taking care of someone with diabetes, they may give themselves shots or they may take pills. But one of the most common mistakes that they tend to make is they give themselves too much insulin to offset the food that they ate. If you're ever taking care of a diabetic and they do seem to be going into a diabetic shock-like state, they don't seem to be acting regularly or normally, they seem to be irritable, they could possibly be sweating, or they can't focus while they're trying to see, the thing that you want to do for them is to give them something sweet to eat, like a cola or orange juice. Don't give them another shot. That's probably not what they need. They would need something sweet to eat to bring them back to coherency and to be normal again. It works very quickly as long as you act. Another problem that may arise is that you may encounter someone who's having a seizure. If that's the case, the only care that you really need to do for this person is to allow them to have it, to allow them to finish out the seizure that they are having, and don't intervene. The only thing that you need to do if someone is having a seizure is to just protect their head. You don't want to put anything in their mouth, as they used to believe, and you don't want to hold them down. Actually, you don't want to hold them at all. That was a long time ago, and we no longer do that practice. Allow them to have it, and call 911 if this is something that is rare or something that they have never done before. If you encounter someone that has fainted, one of the ways that you care for them is you want to get their feet raised up higher than the level with their heart, and you want to get it up to the level of their head so that blood can flow back to the brain. You do this in the case of shock and fainting. It's the same care for both. In a typical first aid kit, you may have something called a shock blanket that looks like foil. The reason why we use this is to keep the body warm. But in case of fainting and shock, it's the same remedy. You raise the feet above the level with the heart and the head to get the blood back up to the brain so that the victim remains conscious and you do not lose consciousness. If you would like any more information, please log on to www.cprus.com.